Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks, and today we are here for some book reviews. Earlier this month, Melinda at A Web of Stories picked out 3 books for me to read, and I had absolutely no say in the books that she picked out. So there was only a small number of guidelines in how she was to pick out these books. A, it couldn't be something I'd already read. B, it had to be something I could access at my library, and C, it couldn't be like a middle book in a series. If it was a series book, it had to be the first book in the series. Other than that, she had absolute and complete control. It could be any genre, any author, it could be translation, it could be whatever. And let me just say, Melinda did such a good job picking out these books. She picked out 3 very different books, different genres, different vibes, but all 3 are ones that I was very interested in. So I'm gonna go through and talk about each one. At the end, I'm gonna let you know how I think Melinda did with the picks overall. The first book that we're gonna talk about is The Hummingbird by Sandro Veronesi. This was originally written in Italian and translated to English by Elena Palla. So this book follows a gentleman named Marco, and it is a non-linear timeline. So we flash back to the past, we flash to the forward, we flash to present day, and Marco has a, let's say, difficult life. He marries a woman who at the time seems like the right woman, but ends up being the wrong woman. She has an affair. He's actually in love with another woman who was completely unavailable at the time, and he has this lifelong sort of relationship with her. It's not exactly a romantic relationship the whole time. Like, there's parts where it's platonic and things, but that's definitely something that leaves him very torn. He has to fight for the custody of his daughter. His sister dies. His relationships with his parents are tumultuous. He has a falling out with his best friend who saved his life at one point. There's just a lot going on. But ultimately, I think this book is about grief and remaining hopeful in the face of all this adversity, and enjoying people for the time that we have them and in the context that we have them. I thought that was a really beautiful aspect of this book. This book is definitely emotional in some ways. I know Melinda said it made her cry. It didn't make me cry, but it did make me reflect on things like grief and love. I was a little nervous about the non-linear timeline aspect of it because there's so many characters and so much going on, but I thought it was pretty easy to follow throughout the story. I will say that there were a couple points in the story that felt like maybe a little excessive to me, or just like they got kind of shoved into the story and they could have been taken out. But overall, I thought the story was really well done and really interesting. For me, this was definitely a 4-star read. After that, we have Night Wherever We Go by Tracy Rose Payton. This is a historical fiction, and historical fiction is one of my favorite genres. So this is set in the slavery era, and it focuses on 6 women who are enslaved on a plantation in Texas. What's particularly unique about this is that this isn't a successful, booming cotton plantation in the antebellum South. This is a hard-scrabble, struggling plantation in Texas. It is harsh and hostile, and the owner is financially incompetent. He makes terrible decisions, and they're just in financial doom. And the worse that their economic situation gets, the more the plantation owner comes up with horrendous ideas to try to make money, until he comes up with the idea that he is going to breed and sell slaves. The 6 women on the plantation catch wind of this idea and start doing things to protect themselves from unwanted pregnancies. I think going into this book, I thought this was going to be more about a uprising or a rebellion in the direct form. If you read the summary of it, it talks about a rebellion and uprising, and so it makes it sound like they're going to actually fight back in terms of physically fighting back, and it was actually much more subtle than that. These women come together and use their resources and their cleverness and their learning to protect themselves, but they're trapped in a situation where they can only protect themselves so much and only do so much. It was brutal and difficult reading this. I think that this book would be a difficult read for any human being. Anyone that has compassion or empathy would read this and feel like a gut punch. But in particular, I think as a woman reading a story where we're seeing 6 different women dealing with systemic sexual assault with the intent of breeding was pretty awful. It was definitely a tough read for me in places. I think the emotional impact that I felt from this book came more from knowing that this sort of thing really happened to women during slavery, that women really were forcibly bred, that women really were raped, and women really did have their children sold off, and families were ripped apart. I think that hit me really hard. But as far as feeling a super strong emotional response to the writing itself, I just wished there was a little bit more depth. I think maybe it's just that there's so much going on. There's so many different characters. We're going from one person to the next constantly. I never really felt like I got really deep inside any one character's emotional feelings and impact and things. I just wanted it to delve a little bit deeper into each individual woman. Overall, still a really good book and an incredibly important narrative. It touches on, like I said, a piece of history that I think gets overlooked. And I think it's important to explore that. I'd also give this book a 4 stars. And book number 3 is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. So this is Norse mythology. If you've been watching my channel recently, you'll know that I've been on a Greek mythology kick, and Melinda so generously threw some mythology in here. I was actually really excited because The Witch's Heart has been on my TBR for a long time. I haven't read much Norse mythology, but I'm super interested in it, and this was totally up my alley. This is about a witch named Agrabota. She has a very difficult relationship with Odin. Odin wants something from her that she's refused to give him, and so Odin has burned her alive, and she survived it. But now she's hiding away in the woods. The only people that she really gets are visitors like her friend Skadi, who is a huntress, and other than that, she's just kind of off in her cave doing her own thing. Then one day she meets Loki, the trickster god, and they end up falling in love. They end up having 3 children. All 3 of them are very unique in different ways. And as the children grow up, Agrabota starts to have premonitions. And she has a premonition of some very scary and serious changes coming in the world that tie into her own children's futures. And Odin starts pursuing her with the desire of finding out what those premonitions are about. It is such an interesting book. I absolutely love this one. Agrabota, first of all, is an awesome character. She's so relatable. She's badass. She's tough. She's got that soft, squishy side inside of her, but she's got it locked away and protected. I felt like I related with her a lot. Loki is very amusing. He's likable. He's everything that you would expect Loki to be. Skadi is a badass. I loved all the characters in it. Her children are likable. Just in general, aside from like Odin and the gods, all of the main characters that we see are just really enjoyable. I also love seeing this relationship between Agrabota and Loki form, and how they're very accepting of who each person is in the relationship. Like, Agrabota isn't trying to settle Loki down. She's not trying to change him. She accepts him for who he is when the rest of the gods really dislike who he is. And he accepts Agrabota for who she is. And I really enjoyed that part of the story. I also thought that Agrabota as a mom was exactly what a mom should be. She was tough and she was fierce and protective of her children. She loved them, and everything she was doing was in the interest of giving them the best shot at life that she could. This story goes in a whole bunch of different directions, and it is a little quirky and interesting, definitely a little different than Greek mythology, but I'm so here for it. If you like fantasy, if you like mythology, if you like unique storytelling, this is the type of story you should be reading. This was so good. Of the 3 books that Melinda picked, this was my favorite. So I did give this one a 5 stars. So with that said, how did Melinda do? I think she did an excellent job. First of all, she picked 3 genres that I really, really love. She paid attention to the fact that I enjoy translations and languages. She picked things that were really interesting and unique in their specific genre categories. So instead of just going, oh, I'm going to pick the most contemporary or most trendy thing in a specific genre, she picked things that were unique and interesting. And so I am really, really pleased with all of the books that she picked out. This was a lot of fun, and I definitely read something that I don't know if I would have found on my own. The Hummingbird was something that wasn't on my radar at all, so I'm so glad that Melinda recommended it. And Night Wherever We Go, I may have found that eventually, but I'm definitely glad that Melinda sent it over. The Witch's Heart was on my radar, but I'm really happy to have had this bumped up on my list because it was such an enjoyable read. And funny enough, I actually just got an ARC copy of Genevieve Gornichek's next book. I think it's The Witch and the Weaver Queen. So I'll be reading that pretty soon as well. So thanks, Melinda. You've created a monster. Not only now am I going to be obsessing about Greek mythology, but I'm going to be going on a binge of Norse mythology as well. That said, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of Melinda's picks. Have you read any of them? Have you heard of them? How do you feel about them if you have read them? And let me know, what would you pick out for me if you were going to pick a book? And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss a video. And that way we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.